Alright, this video is about a game called Signal Poker, developed by myself based on simple game theory concepts to reduce overconfidence in poker. This game is patent pending. The game can be played in single stack or multi-stack, but in this video I show the single stack version only. Signal Poker is definitely not a player against the house table game. In games like blackjack or roulette, people play against the house. But Signal Poker is actually a player against player concept, just like all the games that we see being played in poker rooms like Texas Holdem or PLO. Signal Poker is not a new game either, but it's about new way of playing any existing poker game by adding these new buttons that we call them signal buttons. So you can add red and green signal buttons, the ones that you see here, to the No Limit Texas Holdem, and then we will have a No Limit Texas Holdem signal game. Or if you add red and green signals to a PLO game, then we will have a, yes, you guessed it right, signal PLO. We can use signals in tournaments or cash game, in limit or no limit, and in live or online games. In this video, I explain the entire game in 30 seconds, and then discuss a couple of examples. So here we go with the 30 seconds of instruction. Each player has one red and one green signal button. You can play a signal by putting it in front of you near the betting line. Playing signal is always optional. But if you play a signal, it has to stay there and you can't change it for the rest of that hand. You can play a signal anytime action is on you, along with a check, call, bet, or raise. Just not with a fold or all-in. You may play signals pre-flop, on the flop, on the turn, or river. When you play red signal, the rest of your stack goes out of play. So whatever you have left is out of play. Your stack basically gets locked for the rest of that hand. When you play a green signal, you are simply foregoing the option to play your red signal. So playing green means you're just losing your option to play the red signal in that hand. So green, in a way, is a red blocker. Alright, that's part 2 now. Let's talk about a couple of detailed examples. So as I said, you have the option to play only one of your signals in a hand. And you can make your signal play anytime the action is on you, along with any check, call, bet, or raise. So for example, on the flop, you may want to play a red signal along with a bet. If you may, how about we call that a red bet? Because your wager action is a bet, and your signal action is a red, so red bet. Or perhaps on the river you like to play a green signal along with a raise. Let's call that a green raise. Or maybe pre-flop you wish to play red with a check. How about calling it a red check? As I said, once you play the signal, it stays there for the rest of that hand. You can't take it back and you can't change it to a different signal color either. Of course, when the hand is over, or if you fold, which means the hand is over for you, then dealer gives your signal back to you so you can use it in future hands again. So let's see a couple of examples, first with the red signal. When you put this big red button in front of you, near the betting line, everybody will know that for the rest of that hand, whatever is left in your stack goes to the locked mode, meaning that your stack will be out of play and you just have no more action. Remember, your hand is still live and you're not folding, but you just can't touch your chips as if you don't have them anymore. So here we have two players, named George, that would be me, and Jane. And it doesn't really matter whether they are playing Texas Holdem or Omaha or Razz, because it wouldn't make any difference for how the signals work. So let's say George is first to act. Obviously his wager options are check or bet when he is first to act. In terms of signal action, he may choose to not play his signals yet. Or he may choose either green or red with his check or bet. So basically he can do a red check, red bet, green check, or green bet. Or if he doesn't want to play a signal at all, he can just play a naked check or a naked bet. Let's say there is already some money in the pot. So that's the money already in the pot. And each player still has $200 left behind, $200 belonging to George and $200 for Jane. Example 1. Let's suppose George wants to do a red bet. Okay. So he can, for example, bet $40. This is 40 for $10 chips. And also play red signal. So he's playing the 40, he's betting the 40, along with playing the red signal. Okay, that means his remaining $160 is locked now, or out of play. Now what can Jane do if George makes that $40 bet with a red signal? Well, obviously Jane can't raise because the rest of George's chips are no longer in play, so how can she raise? So Jane can only now fold, or she can call that 40. That's example 1. Now example 2, suppose George does bet the 40, but he doesn't play the red signal. So now Jane, in addition to the options that she had before, the fold or call, can also raise. If she folds, obviously the hand is over. But if she wants to either call or raise, then she also has the option to play a signal, red or green. Now, just to clarify, when Jane is facing this $40 bet by George, can she say, I want to play red signal to avoid making that $40 call? The answer is no. Just like in regular poker, when she is already facing a bet, if she doesn't want to fold and she wants to stay in the hand, then she has to at least make that call or raise. So only if she does make that call or raise, then she will be able to also play a signal. So let's say Jane likes her hand but doesn't love it. So she wants to call that $40 bet, but she wants to make sure that she doesn't have to put any more money in the pot in the next rounds of action. So she can call that $40 along with playing red. So that's $40 for Jane. And if she doesn't love her hand too much, she may want to play that red signal with it. And that way the rest of her stack is now out of play. So that 160 is no longer in play once you have the red button here. So what else could Jane do? Well, she could also raise George. And again, she could do that with or without playing a signal. So she could say raise to 90, with or without playing the red. Now let's say Jane actually raised to 90. And at the same time plays her signal, red signal too. So that's the 40 and that's 50. That's a raise to 90 by Jane. Okay? So now, what are George's options? Again, definitely not a re-raise. George cannot re-raise her. This is 40 bet by George, that's 90 raised by Jane. Now, George cannot re-raise her because her stack is out of play now. So George's options are basically only call or fold. He can either call the 50 or he can fold. So now let's see examples about playing the green. What happens when you play the green signal? Well, the only thing that happens is that when you play the green signal is that you forego your option to ever play the red signal in that hand. So basically green is a commitment to not use the red. Because in a way with the red button you can lock and protect your stack. But when you play the green, you are basically making your stack vulnerable, unlockable. Of course, you can still fold, even when you've played the red signal, but if you don't want to fold your hand, then your stack will have to remain in play. So let's say when George was betting that $40, he played his green with that bet too. So that's $40 bet by George, and that's a green play by him. And now Jane raises to 90. So Jane is going to raise to 90. Okay. What are George's options? Well, George can still fold. Remember, green doesn't mean that you can't fold. He can also call that raise. And so, as we see, the green is really simple because in a way, green doesn't affect your stack and your wager actions directly. But instead, it affects your action indirectly by removing the choice of playing the red signal. So green is nothing but a red blocker, as I said. You can see my second video for some strategy discussion and optional rules. Thank you.